Alright, me. It is almost the end of March. It's like March 28th, I think. And I have finally read something during our spring break for the schools that I substitute teach at, because I have just avoided reading anything. But over last night and then today, I read and then watched the 1981 film of Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. This is a fascinating play to me. This is based on two named characters in Hamlet, and the question of why in the world are these two important enough. I believe at the end it's announced that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, and they are like the last. If I remember correctly, they're like the last two that are announced dead, and it's a question of why are they so important? Why do we care that these two people that are on stage for like a scene and a half, I think, in a very long play, not only are announced as dead, but I think are like the last ones that are announced dead. I'll have to double check that. But you know, and you know, that's the basis of this. It is a smart play in the sense that you definitely have to have some understanding of Hamlet before reading this. And you know, even my rather elementary knowledge of Hamlet from a number of years ago was enough to get me by. But still, you need to have that understanding, right? And it doesn't play around about that, I don't think. Yeah. The original play, I believe, was initially published in 1967, which makes sense for what this play does, right? It is a play that takes this idea of these two characters that have very little backstory and very little meaning in the world, and basically places them into what does their day look like, or what does their life look like up to this, right? And it is inherently philosophical and inherently, what is it, epistological, I think is the word I'm looking for, of how do we know what we know. And it is this horrifying take on how do we know what we know, and what do we actually understand about who we are and things, right? And so there is two recurring bits, I should say, that are going on throughout all of this. The first one is this concept of fate versus luck, right? Which is a thing that always comes up in this play with Hamlet, as well as the Scottish play, and in which at the beginning we start with this scene of one of them is constantly flipping a coin and is constantly landing on heads, and they're like 89, 90, 100 something in a row. I don't know why you always decide that as soon as I start talking, you need to start doing this, because you were sleeping so peacefully. Are you done? You bring this on yourself. You were sleeping perfectly fine. Okay. The bit of the recur. Are you fucking done? The recurring bit of fate versus luck, flipping a coin, and it's now landed on heads 100-something times in a row. And they meet the players, and it becomes this conversation of what is fate versus what is luck. Is it lucky or is it fated that we were to meet each other here? Is it fated or is it lucky that we were to have this conversation? Was it fated or is it lucky that everything happens the way it does, right? And that's what, I mean, that's in a lot of ways the whole play becomes about, is this concept of fate versus luck. Is it fated that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are to die, and they always will no matter what? Or is it just happenstance? And that the way that it is just the way that things kind of end up working out in this specific case. It gets called into question at the very end of, maybe we'll know better for next time, right? And, the whole thing of maybe there was a point of which we could have said no. But is there, right? Or is it just, right? And if there is that still fated or is that luck still? And is this just happenstance that all of these decisions that get made put them in this position to die, right? And so, it is this horrific ordeal, right? So that's that. The other thing that is constantly throughout, it gets mostly through their names, but it's probably actually the bigger thoroughfare of this is, how do we understand what we understand? How do we know what we know, right? And really what ends up happening is that it is a play that is writing from the perspective of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are also part of the audience, and so they only understand as much as the audience does, and what the audience gets told is background and exposition and things that is set directly within the play, and therefore, right, they have no actual understanding of what's occurring, right? It is effectively, the play is a story of the creation of characters and how they have to interact within the world, right? And so throughout the entire thing, you have this bit in which neither Rosencrantz or Guildenstern actually know their names. They know that one of them is Rosencrantz and one of them is Guildenstern, but they only can come to that conclusion because they end up having this very vague memory that they were awoken by someone banging on shutters, calling Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to come be messenger, and that they must await the king. And then that's that. They don't actually understand or know who is which one, why they are actually doing this. They just know that one of them is Rosencrantz and one of them is Guildenstern, which is this constant thoroughfare throughout all of this. It gets mentioned basically at every single point. When they first meet the players, it's, I'm Rosencrantz, this is Guildenstern. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Guildenstern, this is Rosencrantz. When they meet the king and queen, there becomes a bit in which they, in the film, they do it so that it's like the queen doesn't know which one's which. In the written play, I believe it kind of works out that like they bow at each other's names, but they're bowing when the king is introducing themselves to the wrong one. And so it becomes that sort of deal. There becomes this game of questions about what is your actual name, and they can't commit to one of the names being themselves, there becomes a bit when they are one of them is trying to pretend to be Hamlet, about how they're going to question Hamlet, and it becomes I'm going to be Hamlet, you're going to be Rosencrantz, so am I pretending to be you now? Which in the play is spoken by Guildenstern, I believe, right? And so it becomes Rosencrantz that doesn't know his own name and is calling the other one Rosencrantz as well. Yeah, right. That's this constant going through of everything, right? Along with that, right? It's constantly playing the pronoun game of the because we use pronouns to substitute longer nouns all the time, but then also this is such a male-dominated play, right? Hamlet is. We're constantly running into this thing of, the old man believes that he is in love with his daughter. Well, okay, if you just take that sentence out of context, who is he? Is it the old man that is in love with his own daughter? No, the he is supposed to be Hamlet, right? And so it's a lot of that stuff, right? And it is really a lot of epistemological work of, I think I'm using the correct word. It's theory of knowledge. Epistolology or epistemology. It's one of the two. Right, but it's this constant of what do words actually mean, right? And when we are speaking to someone, right, or writing for something, right, if the goal for us is to communicate information, right, then these are valid questions of, or valid confusions of what is actually supposed to be happening, right? And so, like, back to the whole bit of when they are supposed to be playing, one of them is going to be playing Hamlet, and one of them is going to be playing Rosencrantz, and playing this question game to try and understand who Hamlet is and what is afflicting Hamlet, right? It becomes this whole thing of I'm going to be Hamlet, you're going to be you're going to be Rosencrantz. Am I going to be you? So who are you? Why are you? Right? And it's this very, very fast-paced thing, but it makes a lot of sense if to understand what they're actually trying to do there, right? And then they continuously do this epistemology thing of words. What do they actually mean? What are they trying to understand, right? Because the part of the play becomes Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are learning about Hamlet at the same time that the audience is, or the audience would be, right? And so they don't have an understanding of who they are or who Hamlet is, but they eventually get this understanding of that they are supposedly good friends of Hamlet, that Hamlet has this affliction that he is no longer the same person, but who is that person he was supposed to be before? If they can't understand, or if the audience can't understand or can't see who he was before, right? Which is a great, great, great thing, because it really does call into question, or this validation of how do you actually play Hamlet, right? Because every single thing in Hamlet relies on the interpretation of just words, right? There is no historical footage. There is very, very little existing blocking of what this play actually looks like. And so everything that gets done in Hamlet is a choice that is being made by the people making it, right? Based sincerely and just on words, right? And so you can play Hamlet in a way of which Hamlet is a completely sane person, but everyone else around him is absolutely convinced that he is someone different, right? That would be a completely valid way of doing Hamlet. Because all you have are just the words of everyone else that Hamlet has gone insane, Hamlet has gone crazy. Yeah. And then you get the players, and the way the movie does it, the 1981 movie, is that this becomes a play within a play, or a play within a movie. And so at one point, you have the movie going on, you have the play going on in which the players are performing effectively Hamlet. Within Hamlet, there is the play that occurs, and then there is the puppeteered version that occurs. And I don't remember if that third play is within Hamlet or not, right? But in this version, so you have a movie that is occurring about a play, and based on a different play and then a play is occurring within that movie, and a play is occurring within that play, and then a puppeteered show is occurring within that play, right? And it's these questions of reality and what is real and what is actually happening, right? And the way that the film ends up dealing with all of this is that the film effectively ends up making the players in some sort of fate type role, or like the fates, effectively, whereas the play just kind of leaves it open-ended as to what's supposed to be happening. But yeah, it is this. What are you doing? This whole question of who are the players actually, right? And to pretend to die, is that enough of dying to accurately portray it and accurately be involved with it? Or must one actually die to understand, right? I think on the surface level, it's a very, very quick play to read and to get through, right? It's a 3 acts. There are no individual scenes, which I'm not a huge fan of. But it's like really 3 acts, and there's like maybe 2 to 3 scenes in each act. And so like it's this very, very condensed play, and the dialogue's very, very, very quick. And yet it is immensely complicated in a lot of different ways. I would be very interested in trying to use this in some way if I was to ever actually have to teach Hamlet. I mean, there are a million good versions of Hamlet out there. I would not show The Lion King, as much as everyone wants to pretend that The Lion King is Hamlet. It is not. It is simply not. Because you miss the entire ending of Hamlet if you think The Lion King is Hamlet. Are there similarities? Sure, right? But having this thing of the false usurpation by killing the king, by regicide, and then becoming the king instead of being someone else, right? That arguably speaks way more to the Scottish play than it does to Hamlet. So if anything, I would say that The Lion King is probably a little bit closer to what's his face, the Scottish play than it is to Hamlet. But I don't know. I would be very interested in trying to figure out a way to incorporate this, right? Because part of it is that Hamlet is already such a long process, I think, to teach, at least to teach well. And so attempting to also include this would be tough, right? I mean, that would be effectively an entire quarter just dedicated to Hamlet, effectively. But yeah, that is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, written by Tom Stoppard. Yeah.